Hello everybody, Saturday night here in Appalachia. Welcome to the Galactic Warrior channel. So lovely out here, my little sacred space. Today I want to go back to my 5 years ago at Rythmia Life Advancement Center in Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Trip number 3, which was December of 2019. I actually arrived on December 15th, which was a Sunday, and took the van to the Life Advancement Center. It's about an hour drive. Something happened though about 2 weeks before the trip. I was living in this condominium in Rochester Hills, Michigan. And it was a 2-bedroom, so 1 bedroom was my yoga room. Had my yoga mat on the floor. And I was sitting there one time, 2 weeks, so early December, and I saw a vision of a guy named Mitra. Mitra is a shaman who conducts the full, long Colombian ceremony on Thursday nights. He comes in just for that ceremony. And I had a vision of me sitting in front of him saying, what he does is he goes around the room and everybody has to state out loud their intention for the ceremony that night. It's always good to have an intention. And what I saw in this vision is that I sat there and said, my intention is to die. And then I saw a snake shedding its skin almost daily for the next 2 weeks. And I knew when I arrived that that intention was for the week. And I also asked for healing for my back. This is what I wrote down back in December, early December. So the next day, which was December 16th, Monday, I wrote down that I was sitting on the mattress before the ceremony and I had some apprehension that came and went during the day. So 5 months have passed since, well, August 1st, so September, October, November, December, about 4.5 months have passed since my last trip, which was a very successful trip. So I had some apprehension, but that's normal for the first night. I don't care if you've been there one time or if this is your first time or you've been there 100 times. The first night is always going to be a little bit of anxiety. That's how I think about it. But I wrote down that it feels good. I was writing a lot of notes back then in a notebook. It feels good about going into my fears again. My intention is to show me who I've become, show me what is behind my fears. And as I sit here writing, this is before the ceremony, as I sit here writing, the AC unit above me drips on me. I can handle anything. So later on, I was writing in the dark. That's what I wrote down. During the ceremony, sitting outside on the steps, just letting it flow. The first cup of ayahuasca was okay. Had a small sweating purge going in line for the second cup, which happened a lot on my last trip. Took another half cup later on for a total of 2.5 cups, which is the most I've ever done. So I was trying to really push myself. And this was the Brazilian stuff, I'm pretty sure. They had the 3 flavors of ayahuasca, the Brazilian Monday, Wednesday, and then Brad's Bliss, I called it, on, he was the shaman, made his own stuff on Tuesday, and then the Colombian Yahe on Thursday. So this is the Brazilian stuff, and it's very visual for me. It was like that on the second trip. Lots of geometry. I saw my death. I had a lot of forgiveness. My mother, my sister, my ancestors. There are times when I remember standing outside in front of it. They had a fire pit outside. And I remember multiple times standing out there and calling in my ancestors. And I remember seeing both my grandmothers and grandfathers, the 2 pairs, there with me. It was very interesting. Very lovely, actually. Apologizing to people, my mother, my sister, love in every moment, compassion, empathy, love in every interaction, a lot of movement, and from hero to warrior, shed shred the tyrants and weaklings, they will feel it when I return. So what that refers to is that day that I arrived, that I was in the process of reading a book that was written in the 1990s. It's a book for men called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. And each one of those 4 archetypes has 2 shadow archetypes. And so when I said shed the tyrants and the weakling, the tyrant is the active shadow of the king, and the weakling is the active shadow of the warrior. And so I was trying to shed those. And I actually remember one time I was sitting in front of the fire and I was just literally saw my whole body just shedding, melting. Things were just melting away. At the end of the night, and this happened, they call it ego death. I don't like that term because it wasn't really, I call it, this was this crossing over that was happening. So on this night, and it happened a couple times, it happened both Monday and Tuesday night, I remember. But Monday night at the crescendo of the final song of the night, because there's always music playing. It's a playlist. At the crescendo of the final song, and I remember going up and asking about which song it was, I crossed over. And in this particular night, what I did was I broke out of the matrix, basically. And I actually wrote down, passing over at death in a kaleidoscopic geometric wormhole. I actually shared that with the group that night too. And I asked telepathically, I said, where am I? Because I remember this still, all I could see was stars. You know, the voice, and I wrote down, she said, this is the voice, Mother Ayahuasca, the 5th dimension. I was formless, floating, seeing the universe, and then she told me, rewrite your story. That was one of the things I forgot after I returned home 2 weeks later, almost 2 weeks later. There's a lot of things I forgot. That was this week at the end of December here, just before Christmas. This was 10 years, almost exactly, from the time I started my journey when I quit drinking alcohol on January 2nd, 2010, excuse me. So January 2nd, 2010, here we are, December 2019, almost 10 years exactly. And I feel that this whole thing was another rite of passage. I was moving from one phase of life to another. But the lessons, while the ayahuasca and the universe gives you these ideas and these lessons like rewrite your story, it can take a while to fully embody that idea and fully understand that idea. And that's what I've experienced in the last 5 years. So on Tuesday, they had a speaker there, Paula. She's beautiful. She's the cutest little thing. And she works with Michael Bernard Beckwith and his Agape, and out in the west coast of the U.S. And he wrote a book called The Answer Is You. And so she talks about things that are in this book. And I've heard her speak a few times now about this. And one of the things I wrote down was cultivate your discernment. Discernment is probably one of the biggest words that has come into my language in this 5 years. Discernment's incredibly important. And she said, what is trying to emerge? We live in a chaotic universe. In chaos, something is trying to emerge. Now think about what's going on in our world, right, with the chaos everywhere, right? What's trying to emerge? It's a new world. You know, some people, the controllers, want to call it a new world order, right? But we, the masses, the ignorant masses, we, the masses, have a choice about what that new world order is going to look like. All right? That's what's trying to emerge from this chaos. It's a very important point. She said that pain is an indication that the body is looking for order. That's another thing, very important, okay? One of the guys I work with is going to go get a new hip on Monday. Man, oh man, I actually talked to him about about my diet these days, which is carnivore, red meat and eggs, and in the lion diet. I really wish I could have convinced him. I don't know him well enough. I've never met him face to face, but I really wish I could have gotten him to go 90 days. Just postpone this for 90 days and try the lion diet, red meat, salt, and water for 90 days and see if that takes the inflammation in your hip away. Because it has happened to many people. Yeah, it really hurt me when he told me that. He just told me that this week, that he was going Mondays of the day. So pain is an indication that the body's looking for order, all right? So we're carrying around emotional stuff in our body all the time, right? Expectations in our relationships are premeditated disappointments. Boy, I forgot that one until just now when I read that. Boy, oh boy, I wish I'd have read that 5 years ago. Cultivate courage and go in the direction of the storm. It's kind of like what the bison do out in the West when there were billions of bison here before the Europeans arrived. When the storms came, they went into the storm. It's interesting, instead of going away from the storm, they went into the storm. And I guess it's because they got to the other end of the storm faster. Makes sense, right? She talked about self-respect, healthy boundaries, self-care, self-love, self-worth. That's become my whole definition of self-love. Self-respect, self-care, self-worth, and self-responsibility. It's become one of my mantras in the last 5 years. Using something for sacred ceremony or to numb out. That could be, alcohol, sugar, junk food, anything like that. Our problem with fear is not fear, it is our resistance to fear. That's the whole point of going on these ayahuasca journeys, is to face the fear. Because the fear, where does fear come from? Lack of knowledge, right? We don't know what's going to happen the next moment. So we drink this brew and we go lay down, we don't know what's going to happen. Okay? That's the fear. It's just nothing but lack of knowledge of what's going to happen. Which is why when all of the masters tell you, just be in the moment, and then there's no fear, because you don't have to worry about what's going to happen. You're just in this moment. She talked about consciousness, 4 stages of consciousness. Stage 1, the victim, to me, revolves around blame, shame, guilt. Stage 2 is manifest to it. Right? A power and control. Surrender is an active part of courage. Stage 3 is channeling through me, separation of the ego. And stage 4 is being as me. I am that I am. And I was listening to Bashar a couple of months ago, channeled through Daryl Anka out on the West Coast. And he gave me a little hint of a mantra that I now do every night when I lay down in bed. Right? Stage 4, being as me, I am that I am. What the mantra is I am that I am, and that is enough. I am that I am, and that is enough. I am that I am, and that is enough. 3 times every night. That's what I do. So now we come to Tuesday night, the second ceremony, Brad's brew. First cup, not much happens. Second cup, lots of forgiving myself. This is interesting. I hadn't read this before I started this, so this is really coming back to me now. Talking with Adam, Marvin, and Dewey. Time out by the fire, but still not real powerful. So, talking to Adam, Marvin, and Dewey. Boy, I had forgotten about that. Adam is my son that I've never met. Marvin is my father that I only met 3 times in 1983, and then he passed away. And Dewey is his father, my grandfather, who I never met. He died in the 1960s. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Time out by the fire, but still not real powerful. So I went to one of the shamans, Christian, who I'd gotten to know during the 3 trips I was there, for cleansing and a little more medicine. I actually walked, this is so funny. I walked up to him and I asked for some more of the ayahuasca medicine. And as I was doing that, I meant to ask him for a half a cup, but I forgot. And he turned around with a full cup. And at that moment, I had to make a decision, and I didn't hesitate. I just went boom and took the whole thing. And then I wrote, the order of things is fuzzy from here. I was moving from boy to man, which is actually from that book, King, Warrior, Magician's Lover. I stood at the fire and let the fire melt my old self away. I moved in the grass a lot. This was after the first back surgery on my left side. So now I'm getting what they call sacred surgery. And for me, it was, again, the mantis beings. And I remember I was laying on my right side, and I was getting surgery, sacred surgery back here. And I just remember my head was like shoved into the pillow. And I couldn't move my head. It was just like an anvil. It was like just like holding me down like that. It was just amazing. I wrote down, the mantis being spent a lot of time on my back. I came back in from the fire again after a lot of primal dancing. I laid down on my right side and got more surgeries on my back. At one point, my head was being pushed into the pillow and held. That's what I just said. That's what I wrote down. The surgery stopped for a while, and I became one with the music. The Great Spirit. It's a song by Nako and the Medicine People. It's just amazing. The music carried me somewhere, and I became one with it. This was the last song of the night, so this is the second time. It's on the crescendo of the last song. At the crescendo, I died and found myself in the presence of God. What happened is the crescendo hits. I still remember this. I cross over, and this time, like Monday night, previous night, I asked, where am I? This time I did not have to ask. I did not have to ask because it was so powerful. Excuse me. It was so powerful. So, as I was saying, right, the last song of the night, crescendo, boom, crossover happens. I died, crossed over, found myself in the presence of God. What I felt, I didn't have to ask. I just felt this immense love, and I just wanted to get down on my hands and knees. It was truly humbling, but it was I felt like it was the ninth. It was, in some philosophies, it might be the 8th or 9th dimension. It was just the presence of God. It was beautiful and humbling. I did not have to ask where I was. Eventually, I came back and received more surgeries until early in the morning. I actually was getting surgeries. I stopped. I asked them to stop. I actually shared my story with the group. And then I went back to my room, and when I got into bed, boom, I'm pinned to the bed again, and I got surgeries till 4:30 in the morning. And I also wrote that one of the nights, some little robot cleaning bugs were cleaning me out. They looked like Pac-Man. I've heard that this has happened to other people. And it was literally just like, because if you remember the last video, I talked about how I had been abducted by malevolent beings, and they tried to implant some stuff in me. This was not the same. This was benevolent, like they were just kind of cleaning me out. So now we come to Wednesday, and I wrote down, the first cup hit fast. More back surgery, and remember, I asked for this, so be careful what you ask for. More back surgery, pinned on the right side for quite a while. I didn't see them because they're behind me, but I also had a lot of geometric visuals. Well, this is the Brazilian stuff again, which for me was incredibly visual. Now that night, this Wednesday night, is what they called Ladies' Night. And Sarah, who was there, the shaman, she would do a really nice talk. Just a wonderful woman, very powerful. And they had a guest there that I had never heard of, but whose music I fell in love with. And she's got 3 or 4 albums. I have all of them. and her name is Pia, P-E-I-A Lutzi. She's, I think, from the Oregon area. She's got just an incredible voice, but she was with us, and I didn't know this until Wednesday. And Wednesday night, she sat in the middle of the room and played some songs. She was playing a ukulele. She's got a bunch of videos on YouTube, just beautiful stuff. And she's another woman there with her who was playing guitar. And it was ladies' night, but the key was that with myself and others, she was surrounded by about 10 or 12 of the men. And we had 96 people. We had about 100 people in this group. Graham Hancock was there, the author, and his wife and children. It was a big group, 100 people. I wrote down that Pia's singing took me to heaven. The first death was on the mattress. I remember this too. And I forced myself to get up when she started singing. I said, then I got up dancing near the altar and had second death as her voice took me to heaven again like gossamer wings. Then I sat on the floor with 10 other men listening to her. It was so soothing. And she's been there many times since then too. I don't know if that was her first time, but I know she's been there again. I spent a lot of time outside in the grass and then coming in for the music, kind of going in and out. Spent a lot of time on myself, breathing into and out of Gaia. It was another night where I did 2.5 cups. More forgiveness for my sister and my mother. And then I had a nice talk at the end of the night with one of the people that was in our group. And it was an amazing experience that night. Thursday night, which is, I didn't write this till Sunday. I'm writing this on Sunday. So Thursday night, which is the Colombian Yahe night, I saw myself buried as a fig into the earth. Yahe is very grounding. It's not visual. For me, it's not visual at all. It's very grounding. A voice said to me, know that when you die, that you are loved. I died a quiet second time too. The rest of the ceremony was great. I think there were some other things that happened. One of the couples that was there, they actually were on the bus with me when I came from the airport. They actually had a wedding ceremony in the morning. And I think we were there till 10 or 11 in the morning because there were so many people. But so all in all, I had Monday night a crossover, the death experience. Tuesday a crossover, end of the night. Wednesday I had 2 with Pia there, and Thursday I had 2. So that was 2, 4, 6 crossovers. So on Friday night, Friday and Saturdays, on the nights they don't do ceremony, there's breath work. And it's transformational breath work, very intense. And on Friday night, it was so intense that I had at the end of the night, I had another crossover, another death experience. And it was amazing. A beautiful death during breath work. Passed over, and all I could say was, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful, it's so beautiful. I still remember that too. It was in my mind. It's so beautiful. It was mind-blowing. The next day, Saturday, I went to the beach, and then we did breath work that night. Sunday, I took a taxi into Tamarindo because I had made plans to stay over Christmas. Walked on the beach, had dinner, stuff like that. There was other people from our group, a couple from California. They had brought a whole group, this Adam and Vanessa. I remember I saw them walking around, and I think I talked to them once. They had a group of people, and one of them was a young man also named David. And I remember he came up to me around Friday, because a lot of people were coming up to me because it was my third trip that year. And he was a marijuana smoker. I remember that. Just a young kid, 20-ish, 21-ish, something like that, early 20s. And he was curious about returning because he wasn't experiencing what he wanted to experience. And so I remember talking to him for a while. And I remember getting back in around, so this was the end of December, so probably around February, I got a text from this Adam and Vanessa, because we had exchanged phone numbers. And they told me that this young man, David, had returned to Rythmia a short time later and he got through, he had his breakthrough. He had his miracle. He didn't, in the week we were there, he wasn't getting, Jerry talks about it as your miracles, and miracles do happen. Every day is a miracle. But he wasn't experiencing that kind of breakthrough miracle in the December trip. So he came back 6 or 8 weeks later, and they contacted me and said that he had his breakthrough and he had his miracle. And I saw that with some other people. On my second trip, there was a guy who, on 4 nights, did not have his miracle, and he was frustrated. Breath work Friday night, he breaks through. He has his miracle. Saturday, this was on the second trip, Saturday we're going back to the airport, and he's a completely different person. We're just looking at his face. He's just different because he had this incredible experience Friday night. It does happen that way. So I spent the rest of the week, the next 4 days or so, in Tamarindo, which is on the beach, just absolutely beautiful. And just integrating the whole experience. And then went home around, I think, Tuesday was December 25th. I think I went home Thursday or Friday, around the 27th or 28th. And one of the things that happened, though, when I went home is I reverted back to my old habits, and it was particularly with red wine. And so I went back and started drinking a bottle of red wine at night. And unfortunately, that lasted for the better part of the next year, more or less. I don't remember exactly, maybe even longer. But I had dried out for those 2 weeks, plus that I was in Costa Rica. And I reflect back on it now, and it was like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's 2 different people. And that's what some of the habits that we have, that's what they do to us. You know, it was the kind of the buildup of the alcoholism that led me to Rythmia back in June. And with all the miracles and all the deaths and all the crossovers and all the wonderful people that I met on these 3 trips, I look back on it now as being the beginning of something new. But I still had a lot to deal with. Even with the miracles, I still had a lot to deal with, a lot to release, emotional baggage, trauma, whatever you want to call it, a lot to let go. And I'm sitting here 5 years later, and I can say that it's taken that long, but it's been worth the journey. And it's been quite the journey. I look at January 2nd, 2010 as the day I started my self-aware journey. That's what I called it. And I look at January 2020 as the time I started being my true self. But it took a while. There's a process that some of us, I think a lot of us need to go through, and it can last a long time. You can call it the dark night of the soul. I think I did that for a couple of years, and it got dark. It got dark. It cost me a lot. I don't mean monetarily, I mean emotionally, relationship-wise. It was a high price to pay, but it was worth going through it to be able to sit here today, 2024, and realize how I am interacting with other people in a much different, in a much better way, a much calmer way. How I'm especially interacting with the most important relationship that we have, which is the relationship with ourself, and to express forgiveness for ourselves. And also what I talked about, what I learned in that second trip, which was the feeling that I was given of being grateful for everything. And just, so what I do is I express gratitude a couple times a day for everything and for everybody that's come through my life to get me to this point, this moment. And would I like to see some things go differently? Yes. But they didn't. I am here, it is now. You are here, it is now. And that's all we have. So, I have a feeling that the reason that I'm doing this review, is because I'm going to return to Rythmia. I don't know if that's for certain yet, but the thought is there. The thought has been implanted in me for a while now. And we'll see how it goes. I don't know what tomorrow holds. I know it holds something beautiful. So I go to bed tonight, I always say I'm going to die and resurrect tomorrow, because tomorrow we're a new person. And it's been an incredible journey. Painful at times, beautiful at times, but just an incredible journey. And that's my 3 trips to Rythmia. Now there's one more, there's going to be one more, I'll do this next Saturday, of something that happened a short time, exactly 1 month after this 3rd trip to Rythmia. I will share that with you, because it was just, it's something that I'm still asking, what the hell happened? And I'll share it with you next Saturday. So there's a little teaser there. But it was another wild experience. So I hope this has been helpful. If you find the calling to go to do any plant medicine, make sure that you choose a set and setting that resonates with you. Ask and ask again, is this the right place to go? All right. I know that people are doing things around the United States now. I got another email today about something out on the East Coast. Just ask and ask again, is this the right place for me? Is this the right time for me? Because when we go through these things, when we go through plant medicine, we are opening ourselves up to some things in the universe. There are an infinite number of entities out there, and as I have experienced, some of them are benevolent, some of them are malevolent, and we need to use discernment when we encounter them. We have to be able to feel the difference. I was blessed with the ability to do that. So I suggest that you just a little bit of caution. Learn how to protect yourself energetically. It's one of the things I've learned. That's why I talked about last week and the week before, bondage, loops of fear, and breakpoint that shatters integrity. Learn how to protect yourself, whether it's 12D shields or talisman or whatever, crystals, whatever you got going. Biogeometry is a very good one. We live in a reality where we don't, through our five senses, we don't sense most of what's going on. We sense very little of what is actually around us all the time. I'm surrounded by entities right now, okay? And if I wanted to, I could check in with them, because I've done that before. Right? They're always watching over me. So just understand what you're getting into, because it's powerful stuff. It's beautiful, but it's powerful stuff, and it'll shake you right to your core. All right? So until next time, next week I'll share with you the amazing, it's actually my second abduction. The first abduction was the malevolent one that happened on my second trip to Rythmia. This one is a benevolent one, and I will share the details, what details I have of that next week. So until next time, enjoy the week. Aho.